Gil, hey, how are you?
All right, thank you. Yes.
How's it going?
Yeah. Oh, it's going well. Yes,
What's your
it has
first
been.
impression of this conference?
Well, this conference has started well. I was very impressed by, first of all, the climate of
Yeah.
and the whole atmosphere among the people, the different members of the
Yeah.
conference coming from all over the world, and just to get excited about what we're about to establish. That was a good thing.
I would agree. I think the kind of value of this is just the cosmopolitan nature of people from all the background. You and I got together in Rome for a planning meeting in January.
Yes.
I came away from that thinking, where you and I, since we were going to talk about interreligious relations and secularism and ecumenism. My impression that I came away with is actually looking at the Jesuit university world was much more bigger and wider than I thought. I didn't realize there were so many Africans for a start, but I also realized that the things that we were talking about with the question of interreligious relations is actually incredibly varied, and it's very contextual. It always depends tremendous amount on contextual. So on context. So we've been given a job of trying to explain this and to open the door to discussion about it for people whose backgrounds vary tremendously. You know, people who are going to be Central African Republic are going to be very different from Indonesia. People in Canada, Australia, it's going to relate. I mean, so for your interest in the theme of interreligious relations, I mean, what's been the big impression for you?
Well, the biggest impression for me has been the fact that listening to the different groups, different people who have come to the conversations, we have had two so far, the experience that each institution seems to have in this area of interreligious dialogue, that it's not just something that is spoken about. It is actually a reality in the way that they relate, the faculty members, students, and so on. I just heard, for example, how in a school that doesn't have necessarily subjects such as philosophy and theology, where you would expect perhaps these matters to be discussed, but things like health science, that they bring in these issues because they are important in terms of, for example, when someone is doing statistical analysis or looking at the number of childbirths or mortality, and how do we approach these issues from the different religious backgrounds that they have, and how do you teach that, or maybe even religious ethics, in how you include these subjects into other areas of study that are not necessarily theology or philosophy or religious studies. And so I just came to a realization that this topic is important, not just in schools that are specifically philosophy, religion, or theology, but actually in every aspect of study and life.
So I sat around in my group right now with people. So I'm from California, somebody from Spain, somebody from Uruguay, another person from the United States, somebody from France, and then somebody from Mexico. Now those are very different situations, but what struck me that the area that we're really dealing with is a question of secularism and secularization, and we heard about that this morning when the first we would talk. My sense of that is that this plays out in different ways, but that it's constant throughout the world. And so my question for myself is, what role does a Jesuit university have to play, both internally within itself, but also in the relationship of the outside world, with a mentality which sometimes is not interested in religion, or indifferent, or maybe actually hostile. So that's been, I guess, I think that's the underlying theme for me as well. But I guess it's also context, that we are dealing with all these hundreds of Jesuit schools throughout the world, and the contexts are so different.
And talking about context, I think the thing that happened in the discussions that I have been in is that there is an emphasis on creating spaces where people can engage with one another regardless of their religious background, but with mutual respect.
Yeah, and how do you establish that and how do you strengthen the respect which is there?
One of the things that was very interesting is that, for example, somebody spoke from India saying that they have come to a point where in their institution they share the sacred space. So, and somebody else in Canada, from Canada, Saskatchewan in fact, they said that when the killings happened in Quebec, the Muslims in Saskatchewan were very hurt by this, and Campion College in Canada provided their chapel, community chapel, to be a place where these Muslims could come and pray. And that immediately created a sense of trust, a sense of comfort that we're not, just because we are different, it doesn't mean that we cannot be together, that we cannot live together, that we cannot have each one do worship in their own religion and yet
be open to the
other.
We talked a lot about tolerance and actually what that actually means, because there is a kind of an American tolerance which says I'm okay, you're okay, and nothing changes. You know that. But I think the response in Saskatchewan would be would be one kind of one small solution. You know, as academics, I think we are we're used to asking questions. We're not so good at finding solutions. And I guess that's one of my hopes. You know, I don't know practically. I'm listening to what people are saying and thinking, well, practically, what do we do next? You know, Monday morning when we go back to our institutions, what's going to be different? And then in a year's time, you know, 3 years' time. I mean, we had that discussion with Father Garanzini, and somebody asked him in our Task Force Leaders group, what does success look like?
Yes.
And you know, how would you know this conference has been successful in 3 years' time? And I think his idea is basically, you know, 2, 3, 4 initiatives, bringing people together from different parts of the world to learn from each other. That would be a great success.
That would be a great success.
Do you want to invite me?
Yes. I would be very happy to invite you.
Have you got any money to pay me to come over?
I will look into that in the sense of perhaps you could sponsor us to come, and then we would make sure that you have a good space to stay.
Well, let's talk about that over a glass of wine.
Sure, that would be nice.